Hidayah going to explain one of the topic in material science, which is the metal processing. Upon completion of this video, students should be able to first explain the metal fabrication, second describe the metal processing, which are hot and cold work. Okay. Third, describe the forming operation of metal, which are forging, extrusion, drawing and also rolling. Okay, lastly, students should be able to describe the plastic processing.
The primary type of hot extrusion is direct or forward extrusion. In direct extrusion, the hot billet is loaded into a thick wall container and forced through an extrusion die secured in a holder. The force for extruding is applied by a ramp along with an intermediate reusable dummy block. Metal flow from the die is in the same direction as the forward motion of the ramp. Since the surface of the billet length slides along the wall of the container, extrusion force depends on the friction between the billet length and the container and the material. The friction portion of the force can be reduced by using lubrication. Force increases rapidly as the billet is upset to fill the container, then increases further as breakthrough force before extrusion begins. Upon breakthrough, the force declines as billet length decreases until a minimum force is reached. As the billet thins, the force rapidly rises again to continue metal flow radially toward the die opening. Hot extrusion is most commonly performed on horizontal hydraulic presses. Hot extrusion presses are usually rated in force capacity, which translates to the amount of pressure applied to the billet. That pressure depends on billet material and temper, its cross-section and complexity, length and temperature, extrusion speed and reduction or extrusion ratio. The extrusion ratio equals the cross-sectional area of the container liner divided by the cross-sectional area of the die opening.
discuss about a rolling process. We have a upper roller and a lower roller. We have a two rollers and a metal plate or ingot which will pass between these rollers. Upper roller can be up and down in motion. We can adjust this roller in up and down according to the size of the metal plate or ingot. This can be down and this can be up. Now there we have, this is a metal plate and in this there are grains of the metal plate. These are the original unworked grains. Now roller will start rotating and plate will travel and these grains are changed. These original unworked grains are changed in the elongated grains and refined grains, and thickness of the metal plate or ingot will be decreasing by rolling process. So rolling process will decrease the thickness of the ingot and redefine the grains of the plate or ingot.
Drawing. To understand the concept of wire drawing, let us consider a thick copper wire and try to reduce its diameter. For this, we require a die having a conical opening. Now with the help of cutters, let us make one end of the wire pointed. And insert it into the conical opening of the die. Now let us grip the pointed end from the other side of the die, opening by a gripper, and pull it. We see that as the wire is pulled out of the die, its diameter reduces and the wire becomes thin. This thin wire can be wounded with the help of a power reel. The whole process of this wire drawing can be drawn schematically, shown as. Also, the diameter of this wire can be further reduced successfully by installing a series of dies. We see that the cross-section of wire can be reduced by pulling it through the die opening. Thus, the process of reducing the cross-section of a wire by pulling it through a single series of dies is known as wire drawing. Wire drawing is commonly used in manufacturing electrical wires, spring, and paper clip. Related terms are
so preheat the ingots of aluminium before placing them in the crucible. The temperature of the melt should be established using a pyrometer. A degassing tablet should be added to remove impurities. Any surface slag should be removed with a preheated rake. The melt should only be poured by trained staff wearing the appropriate PPE, including substantial footwear. Remember that molten metal can cause horrific injury. The pouring operation should be carried out in a single smooth operation. This will prevent voids forming. Tilt the crucible so the molten metal flows into the pourer. When the void is filled, aluminium will appear in the riser. The mould should be slightly overfilled to allow for shrinkage of the metal. When cool, the mould can be broken, the casting removed,
Okay.
and machined to finish.
Alright students, what do you understand from the video just now? Okay, let's try to do one activity. Identify one of the metal forming company. Identify the metal process that the company practicing. Okay, let's present your work to the class on the next class.